It is a privilege to be joined on the summit today by Paul Giesselmann, who is the outgoing now head coach for Midland Volleyball. The Warriors have been under his direction for the past 15 seasons. And Coach, it's time to retire, time to step down. First off, congratulations on this opportunity to step out of your own free will. Not every coach gets an opportunity to do that. So congratulations on that, and tell us a little bit about retirement.
Thanks, Joey. Really appreciate it. Appreciate everything you've done to promote our sport and stuff. For me, I've had a lot of people, obviously, in the last 24 hours ask me, about the retirement and stuff like that. And, for me, honestly, it was a very easy decision. The last even going back to the COVID year, as far back as that, at the end of every year, I really took time to kind of evaluate where I was at professionally as a coach and also where our program was at each year. And then, I always waited until sometime in January to decide, hey, is it still the best thing for me to lead this program going forward? Because you never want to make a decision in December, right when you get back from the national championships, because that's an emotional decision. Because there's only one team, that finishes the year, without a loss at the end. So I never wanted to make that decision after we just lost. And this year, I had spent a lot of time talking with my family about this and stuff. And I don't know how many people know this, but I've got twin boys. I believe they're about 29 now. And I was very blessed that they attended Midland University and played golf here. So I had an opportunity to see most of their golf competition in college and have them around the volleyball program every day, which really was a great experience for both the boys and myself. Well, I've got a daughter now who is going to be on a golf scholarship at Central Missouri. And, that's 4 hours away from Fremont. And with my job, I'm somebody that's wired. If I'm in on this job, I'm all in. Yeah. And I just can't take off, to go watch this tournament, watch that tournament, and I'm missing a couple of days of practice or whatever it is. I just can't do it. It's not fair to my student athletes. So I just made the decision after talking with my family, Joey, that I was not going to miss my daughter's college career. I didn't want my wife to drive her down, to move her into the dorms by herself. I want to be there to help with that. So that was really a major part of the decision for me.
I support that 100%, Coach. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So appreciate the breakdown of that too. Well, what a career though it's been to this point then. I mean, let me throw out some numbers really quickly, numbers that you may or may not know. I'm sure you probably do, at least subconsciously, if nothing else. But 351 and 141 as the head coach at Midland, numerous trips to the NAIA tournament, 4 trips to the national semifinals, a national runner-up finish in 2020, and you throw in another 227 wins at College of St. Mary's. Quick math here on Midwest Sports Net says that's 578 wins as a college coach. Congratulations on that, and tell us a little bit about what that means.
It means I've been very blessed. I've been fortunate, Joey, to be in some great situations as a coach. At College of St. Mary's, which was my first college coaching job, I was blessed to have my first recruiting class just be a bunch of high character, hardworking Nebraska girls. I took that job late. And when I say late, I'm talking it had to be like end of July or literally like the first part of August, something like that, late in the summer when I actually took that job. And so the first year, we didn't even have a gym because they tore the old gym down before they got a new one built. So it was a challenge that first year, and we struggled. But then we got some great young women in there. And each year we just kept adding the pieces. And I will tell you, Joey, that the 8 years I spent at CSM, I could not have asked for a better place to begin my college coaching as a head coach because of the women that I was surrounded with, but even more, the parents of those players were unbelievable. I mean, they were so supportive as parents. I mean, it made it a really, really fun job. And we were fortunate. We had a lot of success. And I still remember, one of the highlights there was, I believe it was 2000, Palm Beach Atlantic, which is now an NCAA Division II school. They hosted the national championships. And we really ended up with a great team down the stretch there. And we made it all the way to the Final Four, lost a heartbreaker in 5 to the number 1 team in the country. Back they had regular scoring, if you remember, for us old guys.
Yes.
And that match was like a 3-hour and 5-minute match.
Oh, man.
I mean, it was just incredible volleyball. So I always remember that, but it was such a great experience. I really enjoyed my time at CSM, and it set me up. It set me up for the rest of my career, as a college coach, because that job really helped me get hired at Creighton University, as an assistant coach, and eventually Kirsten promoted me to associate head coach. And again, that was 8 years at Creighton, and that was an amazing experience for me. I loved it at Creighton University. And Kirsten Bernthal Booth, who's still there, is just an amazing coach. And I learned a lot from her about, I felt I was a good technical coach, but Kirsten really taught me to be better about the relationships with the players and really getting to know them, type of thing, and being sympathetic to these things and stuff like that. So I will always owe a big debt to Kirsten.
The important things.
Exactly. It's got to be more than wins and losses. You talk about that number. And no, I had no idea where it was at, honestly, because I always, when I speak to coaching classes, instructors will have me come in sometimes and speak to them. And I tell these young men and women that want to go into coaching, I never worry about the past. Don't worry about, well, man, I had a great record last year. Don't worry about what that one-loss record is. You got to focus on the next game. You're always looking through the windshield. Don't look through the rearview mirror.
Absolutely. There's wisdom in that. And I appreciate that. Hope someone else I got something of it. I hope someone else does as well. You talked about a couple of things in particular that you've experienced. I want to talk about one season in particular, and that national runner-up season in 2020. It was, I remember it, and it's not that far from now. And trust me, I'm not one of those guys, coach, that has recency bias. But this hasn't been that long ago, and it was a shortened season. But you all, man, what a run they made near the end of the season. And, names like Hope Leinbach and, Talia Flores and some other players on that team that I'm sure that people who are Midwest Sports Net, Midland volleyball fans would recognize and remember those names very fondly. Talk a little bit about that season.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Joey, honestly, that was the hardest year in my 37-year career as a coach. Wow. That was my most challenging year by far, because of everything that went along with COVID. And, I was fortunate because our university was very proactive, and we were going to continue with sports and stuff like that. And the GPAC conference was a big leader in that.
Yes, and I remember that.
So that was really big, because I think that was good for our players, just from a mental standpoint too, type of thing. But, everybody remembers what all went involved with COVID and what we had to do to keep playing and those kinds of things. And it was really, really hard on the players. Just mentally, it was hard on them, because, they couldn't socialize like, normal college kids, all that kind of stuff, because if they wanted to keep playing, we really had, I told our players, we have to have a bubble. And there can't be anybody that is outside of the bubble coming into the bubble. Because if you get COVID, then next thing you know, you're out 7 to 10 days. The team's out, whether we were forfeiting games or delaying games, stuff like that. And our players were so locked in, Joey. We were one of the few teams that we never had to delay a game or anything because we had players with COVID. So it was a real tribute to them. But it was a struggle in the fall. And as you mentioned, then the postseason, it was the season was continued in the spring, and we played the national championship tournament in the spring. I made a conscious decision after the fall that these girls needed a break. And so when they came back in January for the second semester, we did our usual winter conditioning. Most other schools decided to play some matches, so they scheduled more matches and stuff like that. I never scheduled any matches, that were countable matches. I got our team, I think we took 2 months off. Like, we did not touch a volleyball for 2 months. And then when I brought them back in, they were fresh. They were physically and mentally ready to go. And what we did is we had a lot of time to prepare then for the conference tournament. And I knew what we had to do in order to get a bid to the national tournament. And we were fortunate to really start playing at a high level. And I made a couple of changes in our lineup and stuff. And it all worked out. But that, I said it was the toughest year in my 37 years. It was also one of my most satisfying years because of how these young women just hung in there, trusted the process, and most importantly, trusted each other. And once we got to nationals, you could just see the level we were playing at. I believe we opened up the season that tournament, or opened up the tournament against Indiana Wesleyan, who was number 3 in the country, number 3 seed overall, and we swept them. And a lot of it had to do with we just were really a great defensive team. Talia Flores, as you mentioned, was just a phenomenal 6 rotation outside hitter. Jasa Russell was our starting libero, and she was good in the fall. She was great at the national tournament. You see it in all sports, Joey, whether it's college or pro, that certain teams, certain players, when they get to showtime,
yeah,
they find another gear. And our team found another gear during that tournament. And, we got all the way to the national championship. And of course, when you got Hope Leinbach as your starting setter, you're always going to have a chance. And we had other great players, Maggie Hyatt, who really didn't get a lot of recognition, but she was our 6'1" outside that played opposite of Talia. And as a pair, we might have had the best pair of left sides in the country that spring. I mean, they just were really talented, and they were a joy to be around. And we just came up a couple bounces short, losing in 5 to Missouri Baptist. Now, my daughter that's going to play golf at Central Missouri likes to tell all of her friends and everybody else that if Midland had a better coach, the trophy wouldn't say runner-up on it. So you talk about sometimes you don't get respect at work. I don't even get respect at home.
I understand. Well, talked about guys our age, so we remember Rodney Dangerfield. So I don't know. I don't need to do that invitation, but yes, I do get it, and I understand. By the way, to your credit, you mentioned it. 5 sets in that final 15-12, I believe, was the 5th set, and that was a very, very tough Missouri Baptist team too. So no shame anywhere in that trophy saying runner-up. We're visiting now with Paul Giesselmann, who is stepping down, retiring as the head volleyball coach at Midland here on the Summit on Midwest Sports Net. And I encourage you, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. We love talking about small college sports and more throughout the Midwest and beyond. Coach, as you've been there for a while, you talked about it, I believe, to an extent, but as a volleyball coach, and you mentioned it, the important things. What do you hope to get across to them and to instill in your players? Hopefully, the technical issues of it, but more.
Yeah, that's a great question, Joey. Honestly, my entire coaching career, I always felt like, as a coach in our profession, we just understand you're expected to win. That's the nature of our job. And, in certain sports, at certain places, if you don't win enough, you're going to be unemployed. And, I just accept that as part of the challenge. But for me, that wasn't the biggest part of my job. Um, my most important part, I always said, was to prepare young women for life, for the real world and stuff. Uh, a lot of times when athletes graduate, they're walking across stage and, the coach might say, "Whoa, boy, we got that one across the stage." I always talk to my players about our job is to help you win the interview.
Yeah.
Because I want our players to be confident young women where they go into an interview, whether it's a job interview for a teacher or a banker or whatever it is, or it's an interview to get into medical school or pharmacology school or physician's assistant school. And they're sitting across, a conference table from a half a dozen other people that are trying to decide, is this person got what it takes to get into our academic program? And so it was always about winning the interview. And to win the interview, you have to have great people skills. You have to have great confidence in yourself, and you got to believe in yourself. And I think that's something we've always tried to do just on a daily basis in this program, that the players, when they leave here, are highly sought after, regardless of the field they go into. And I just look back at so many of our volleyball alums that have gone on to tremendous success. I mean, I literally, Joey, have had principals and a couple of superintendents calling me and trying to get me to convince this girl to take the teaching job and coaching job at their school, because they know how good these young women are.
Yeah.
And that's just a great feeling as a coach. But, I'm really proud of the teams and the success and the Final Fours and all that's great. But the alums that are out there winning in life, as a coach, that's what it's really all about. I mean, when you have an alums that have gone on to medical school and become a physician, you have a doctorate in pharmacology from the University of Nebraska Medical Center. We have multiple physician assistants, multiple nurses. Maybe the toughest job there is in the medical field is nursing. And we put out great young women for all of these fields. And to see them, it's hard to stay in touch with everybody. But the great thing, and I'm terrible at social media, Joey. My 17-year-old daughter says, "Dad, you're embarrassing. Just stay off of it." So I obviously don't run the Midland Volleyball social media account, but I'm smart enough to at least get on Facebook once in a while. And it's great because there's where I can see our alums and the success they're having with their families and how they're out winning in life. And that's what it's all about for me as a coach.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate hearing that. And so let me ask you this. As things are lining up then for the future of Midland University volleyball, I know that the line of succession is in place already. Tell us a little bit just about that. What would you say to the incoming coach for Midland? What advice?
Yeah, again, great question. And I will just tell you this first. That was part of my decision to retire too, is we have a tremendous athletic director here at Midland University, Courtney Thompson. I just have so much respect for her. And honestly, I might have left a year or two earlier, but I just I wasn't going to leave with her because I could see what she was doing for the department, So I just really respect her, and she kept me around a couple years longer, which my wife is probably happy about, I might add. But she agreed to name my assistant coach, Micah Rhodes, as the next head coach. And that was important to me because I wasn't going to leave if we were just going to open it up to anybody. Mm-hmm. I put 15 years of my life into this program. And I wanted it to continue with somebody I felt like could even take it to the next level, where maybe the trophy doesn't say runner up on it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm appreciative of Courtney for naming Micah as our next head coach. And the thing I've told Micah is don't be me. I think too oftentimes coaches that get hired to take over a successful program make the mistake sometimes of trying to emulate whatever that coach did in whatever sport it is. And I think it's just really important that, Micah he's got to coach his style and stuff. Now, him and I are very similar in our philosophies on how to train, the systems that we use, all that stuff, which is why we were such a great fit for each other, the last year and a half. So that's why I'm excited about the future going forward. But my suggestion is, be yourself. Don't make emotional decisions. I think young coaches make that mistake a lot. Don't make emotional decisions. You make decisions based on what is going to be best for the program, period. Okay. And then secondary is what's best for the student athlete type of thing. And the other thing that I think is really important is you got to show up every day. Bruce Rasmussen, this is something I've never forgotten. Bruce Rasmussen, who was the longtime athletic director at Creighton University, tremendous gentleman. And in our athletic department meetings at Creighton, he always made a point to tell all of the coaches there that when a student athlete comes into your office about anything, you are never too busy to sit down and talk with them. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you're on the phone, doesn't matter. That student athlete comes first. And so every day you wake up, what's going to be best for the student athlete? How can I make my student athlete's experience here at Midland University? How can I make it a great day today for them? And if you do those little things, the ball, sometimes it bounces your way, sometimes it doesn't. You can't always control that stuff. But, as I tell the players, you always control effort and attitude. And it's the same for a coach. Have a great attitude, put in great effort, good things are going to happen.
Absolutely. I love it. Coach, I can sit and listen to that for another half hour. I know you have things to do, so I won't take up all of that time right there. I would wrap up like this then. Okay, we know some of the reason behind what you've done now and in stepping and taking a different direction. What's next? Is there anything in particular that's next that you're saying, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing? Like, you're saying you were talking about your wife mentioning that she might want you to go ahead and be out working a little bit more. Is she going to kick you out of the house and make you find another job sometime soon?
Well, that probably depends on how good a job I do cleaning the house, okay. I'm guessing. No, honestly, I'm ready to walk away 100% right now. And like I said earlier, I really want to spend time watching my daughter's college career. And the other part of it is, there's a lot of your listeners might not know this, but I'm married to a pediatrician. She owns her own practice, and she has a very challenging job every day, obviously. And so I want to try to make things a little bit easier for her. She has two aging parents, who, as we all go through it, are going to have some health challenges here coming forward. And I want to make sure that I'm around to help make that easier for her also. Whether it's just me being the Uber driver, taking them to the doctor's appointments or whatever it is. But, she was a lot of times, Joey, with coaches, the spouse and the kids sometimes get lost in that career. And people don't understand the toll sometimes it takes on the spouse and the kids, because sometimes they're sitting in the stands and they're listening to, boy, that coach is the dumbest. What's he thinking, with that lineup and stuff. Now, our fans were probably right 3/4 of the time when they were saying that about me. But, that can be hard. And so I've been very fortunate to have an amazing spouse that no matter where I was coaching at, that she was going to be there to support me and still juggle, her being a physician and a business owner. Yeah. And that speaks volumes really about who she is. And so it's my time to return the favor. Now, I'm also lucky. I grew up on a farm as a kid, and my older brother and his son, they still farm. So I'm probably going to end up getting finagled to go out there during planting and harvest season and drive a tractor for them. Although they're going to have to teach me how to get in and start these new fancy tractors because they drive themselves. That was we didn't have that when I was growing up.
Those tractors are a little bit different nowadays. They really are.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I listen. I look forward to what happens for you and for your family in the future. I would definitely like to stay in touch. And you have an open invitation to come on Midwest Sports Net and talk about volleyball or farming if you want to. We can find a way to work that in. And I'm sure you probably talk a little golf in the future as well, because we cover D2 stuff along with the NAIA. So UCM is right there in our wheelhouse too. Coach Paul Giesselmann, the retiring head volleyball coach at Midland University. What a fantastic career. And I appreciate all that you shared and how you sow into your players and more. So thank you, sir, for taking of your time today to visit with us here on Midwest Sports Net.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it very much. And again, I just appreciate what you do to get the stories out about the great student athletes that are in, your coverage area.